Problem with Perescope is you can't set the stuff up before you start the stream. That's okay. Gives me a chance to sort my stuff. Here I am. I'm still here. I haven't gone anywhere. I'm just organising things. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. I love these little impromptu things that I was listening to a guy this morning talk about some important business tricks and tactics and strategies, and all that stuff applies to the music industry as well. It's the music teaching industry is far bigger than the one-on-one that usually happens in a lesson. One-on-one music education here in Australia alone is a $15 million a week industry. 15 million a week. So, you know, on a global scale, it's a multi-billion dollar industry with millions of music professionals and music educators that have to run their businesses, run their teaching practice like a business. But I don't know whether they all do or not. It's an interesting debacle, because not only are we running a professional business, well, I am as a music teacher, we're dealing with kids' lives and we're dealing with people's lives here. So it's important that we have the right systems in place so we can go and just get on with the teaching and not have to deal with the business stuff. You know, shouldn't be your job. They say if you love making cakes, don't open a cake business. So having the opportunity to create a business out of something you love can have some hurdles, because as a professional drummer or a professional musician, you may not have the business skills to run a business. You may not know, I'm being very general, but you may not know much about accounting. Why do I have to charge GST? What is an invoice? And if you're a music professional, and I don't just mean someone who sits in the studio and composes, someone who just plays live music, someone who does both of those things, both of those things, would be a great teacher, because they've got the life experiences and they've done what most young people want to do, and that's to compose music in a home studio or in a big studio, or play live. And if you've done that a number of times, you've got the skills to pass on to someone. And I can tell you now that someone will be happy to pay you for your expertise. It's very important. So a few of the things that I'm going to touch on today, I've got to be off to a music association meeting today at about, I think I have to be there at 1, so I've only got a little bit of time. I'd love to do a longer video, but I'm only just going to touch on a few things, and I've got my computer here with all the info on it that I need to convey to you guys. So we're talking about 3 things to prepare for this year's worth of teaching. So the things not to do, there's 3 of those, and there's one really important thing to do, more so now than ever before. So I'm going to go through these bit by bit, and I'm going to expand on them. So the first thing, the number one thing to get ready for this year of teaching is to figure out a way not to touch anybody's money. And that doesn't mean do it for free. That doesn't mean that, you know, you have to wear gloves when you're transacting with people's, you know, pocket money because they're paying you for the lessons, be it $35 a half-hour lesson, which is the Australian standards. And that number is brought to me by the Music Teachers Association of Australia. So I'm on the panel of the South Australian chapter. So we meet quite frequently and we talk about all things that are very extremely relevant to what this video is all about. So you're getting some behind the scenes on some industry stats Australia-wide. I can't represent on behalf of the globe because I'm not teaching outside of Australia, but I have videos that have my teaching and my online presence is in about 42 different countries across the planet, and I love getting feedback from all those people. So that's, you know, I do teach across the borders. I have physically been across overseas and taught in different places, so I've got a bit of an idea of what's going on. I've been teaching for about 20 years, a private one-on-one. I teach in public schools. I teach in some community centres after hours as well. So I've been doing this stuff for a while, and if you want to know more about what I do, petebarter.com or etimusic.com. The first thing not to do is to touch the money I've just mentioned. Somehow, and I know ways to do this, and I'll tell you that in a second, but somehow you need to make the money come from the student or the student's parent into your bank account without you having to ask for it, without them having to go and get the money to pay you, without you having to give receipts. You want to automate all that. And some people have particular ways that they may automate these things already. There are, even if you were to take money at a lesson, if it's for the whole term, it's debatable. You're making one transaction, you don't have to talk to them about money for the rest of the term, or in some cases, I like to give my students a pretty decent discount for a full year. So at the beginning of the year, you can say, look, I'd love to work with you, and I've got some big things happening throughout the year. I'm going to be rolling out some new systems or new teaching platforms. And I'd love for you to get the full aspect of what we're trying to do to encourage your student, your child, to get the best from our lessons. And I'm going to give you a discount if you subscribe for the full year. You can contract that, you can do whatever you want. I'd rather not contract it, and I haven't with my guys. If for 6 months down the track or at the end of the term they decide, too bad, then I'll just give them a refund for the rest. You know, it's when you're dealing with a lot of students, you've got some capital, and it's okay to do that. But you don't want to touch money. If you could take, imagine this. Imagine you're teaching on a Wednesday night, all day. You teach all day Wednesday, and you've got 20 students, and they're each paying you $30 a lesson. Do the maths. All right, $600 in the day. Imagine having that come into your account without you having to ask for it, just like, because you're running a business, right? Imagine this is the only thing you do. You don't work at Coles, you don't stack shelves, you don't work in a pancake kitchen or anything like that. You just simply teach one day a week, and you make $600. Your business makes $600. There's obviously expenses included in that running of a business. But could you imagine that on that Wednesday, the money's in your account? You haven't had to ask for it. You haven't had to have change. You haven't had to write receipts at lessons. That is professional business. That is not something that parents and students disagree with. In most cases, and our study shows, and my independent research that I've done through sending out surveys to thousands of music educators and tens of thousands of parents and students, they would rather not have to go to the bank or go to scrounge for money just so they can give it to you everywhere. It's a weekly thing. And could you imagine if you're teaching, and this does happen, you're teaching at a school, and the parent in the morning goes, oh, it's Wednesday, goes through in his mind, what's happening today? Oh, little Johnny's got lessons. Oh, crap, I've got to get money, I'll pay the teacher. And you might be thinking that, oh, well, it's a school thing. Yeah, surely the little Johnny's not taking money to the lessons. I've taken over from a couple of teachers in a couple of schools in Adelaide, and yes, little Johnny, as well as little Jenny, and 15 other kids in that school were taking in cash every single lesson. This kid's 10 years old. That is not on. It is not acceptable, and there's no boundaries around whether that is right or wrong legally. But morally, yeah, imagine little Johnny's gone to pay the teacher. He's gone through his school bag, and he's looking for the envelope that's normally in there with, you know, music lessons money in it, and he can't find it. It's not in the bag, and he knows that he has to pay for that lesson. Little Johnny feels horrible. The teacher's like, that's okay. He or she doesn't want to make little Johnny feel uncomfortable, so that's okay. Look, I'll ring mum. It'll be fine. Rings mum. And mum says, no, I'll put it in there. So mum starts to think, well, where's the money gone? Did he lose it? Was it stolen? You know, and this happens every single day in every single school. It's actually horrible. It should not be happening. So we want to fix those little errors, the little concerns, and those little uncomfortable feelings that happen when money is awkward. Money is horrible. money should be something that is, money is a byproduct. Money is something that helps people live a life. I don't call it money, I call it fuel units. So when I'm doing a deal, a transaction of a gig or whatever, in my mind I'm going to charge you, for example, $100. In my mind I think it's 100 fuel units. So with those fuel units I can fuel my life, fuel my family, fuel my health, fuel my habits with drums and bits and pieces and toys and exciting things that I need to buy. Well, I like to buy because excitement is not always a need, it's a want. But so what I use and what I know other people use, before I go to what I use, I'd like to talk about how automation has closed the gaps and closed the boundaries of e-commerce on the planet. PayPal. PayPal's a good example. PayPal enabled something like eBay to be created, where the transaction was electronic. And then we have credit cards and debit cards and FPOS and PayPass, and on the back of my phone I've got a little, it's stuck to my phone. It's a PayPass card. It's about the size of a postage stamp, and that is my credit card. That's what I use. I don't have to get my wallet out. I don't have a wallet. I don't have cash. I never carry cash. Everything that I do is actually in my phone, my iPhone right now. That's all I need. I've even got proximity entrance sensors on my house, so I can open and shut doors from apps. I don't have keys. You know, the world is getting easier and more streamlined. Keys are, once again, the side topic, keys are an old invention, but we still use them. I mean, we still lose them. If we could replace keys, you know, and still have security in our homes, in our offices, and our cars, wouldn't that be great? I know cars have the proximity stuff now. So when you're near the car, it knows that it's you because you've got the keys in your pocket, and then you open the door. You know, it's a current thing. So things are becoming more systemized and more processed without us having to worry about it. So if we can do the same thing for money, that'd be great. I use a platform called, hi, how are you? I use a platform called Easy Debit. Easy Debit is a really simple process where, part of the enrollment process, there's a few details that go that get taken from the enrollment form, address, name, etc., and get placed into the direct debit application form with the nominated bank account or debit or credit card that the student's parent want to have the money transferred from. And it's all safe, it's all secure. There's dashboards that either party, myself or the student, can view to see the transactions coming out. I can see them coming in. I can pause them. I can end them. If they give me authority to change them, I can change the amount. So we might do things like during the year have a school holiday program where instead of it being $35 a lesson, it might be $15 for an hour workshop. I can just send a note to say, would you like me to include little Johnny into our workshop? Yes or no? And I can do that via SMS in bulk as well. I get the yes back, that's cool. I can go in the system, I can change that particular debit from being 35, which would normally happen if there was a lesson. I can change that to 20. It's a great system. The fees are extremely affordable. I would check it out if I were you. We've only got a week left before the school starts again. So wouldn't it be great to roll out now? It's really hard to roll these things out throughout the middle of the term. As music teachers that work on a school-to-school term basis, where there's only 4 times a year where we can kickstart in these programs. It doesn't take you long to have an Easy Debit account set up. You could probably get it done before school starts. And you simply send out a note, you welcome the teachers to the new year, the students and the parents to the new year, and you would suggest that they jumped on board with the new system. It does away with the money hassles. It's completely secure. I would guarantee that you'd have better success rate at you wouldn't need to chase any money. If the money is not in the parent's account for some reason, and you don't get the money in your account, you get a note, you get an email to say there's a dishonour. Little Johnny's mum didn't have the money in her account. Would you like us to try again? You just send a message back to that email saying, could you please try again tomorrow? And in the meantime, you just send a message through to the parent, say, hey, notice the money didn't come through, we're going to try again tomorrow, just letting you know. that's about as complex as it gets. It's actually a really simple platform to use. So I can't recommend that one enough. I've been using it for about 4 years. For those that have just jumped on board now, I would, you can't rewind this stuff. So at the end of this Perescope stream, you've got some time. Go back and watch it again. There's some pretty good information there I've just passed about how to streamline your music business income. And if you don't have to worry about the money, you won't worry about the money. And for cancellations and things like that, it's such a better position to be in, because they might have already paid you. You might say that when you set up this direct debit from the student's parent, your lesson might be on a Wednesday, so you make sure that the money comes into you before the Wednesday, so the Thursday. And if they have to cancel a lesson, that's cool. You can pause the next one, providing they've given you enough time, whatever your terms are, 24 hours, 48 hours for cancellation notices. If they haven't notified you, or simply just don't rock up, then the money's already been paid. There's no reason to charge double next week. And I can tell you now from research that we've done, if little Johnny doesn't rock up and doesn't tell you, he or she knows that the next lesson that they come to, they might have to pay 2 lessons. This is old school stuff. This is like, if you're doing this, if you're handling money like this, I don't think you're taking your teaching job and your teaching skills too seriously. I really don't think that you are, because if you're a professional, you want to make it easy and professional. If you're doing it for the money, then that's why you're having money issues. Sure, we all need money. Money's not the option. Money's not the only option. But if we could make that problem go away or be less of a problem, so we can focus on growing our businesses. Remember, the calculation I gave before was 20 students in a day, which is extremely achievable. $30 a lesson, $600 a week or a day. You could teach 20 students. You could teach 40 students a week. It is easy. I do it. I do far more than that. So, as a professional music educator, you're running a business. And if you're running a business and you're teaching 40 students a week, that's $1,200 a week for 2 days worth of work. It can be done. So why don't we treat it professionally? Topic number 1. I think we've covered off a lot of that. It's important. Automate the money. And your invoicing systems have to be professional as well. That makes it clearer and easier for understand what they're paying for. You're running a business. If you don't have an ABN, get a freaking ABN, because then you can claim all your instruments. You can claim your travel. You can claim portion of your phone, portion of your home electricity, gas, water. If you're printing stuff for your students, you can even claim your invoicing systems. And there's a few invoicing systems that you can use. Some are really cheap, some are really crap, some are effective, some are expensive. There's a whole new Perescope on that, and there's some videos in my on petebarter.com that you can have a look at. Or get in contact, send me a message, and I'll send you the links to them. That's number 1. All right, don't touch the money. Number 2, plan for the full year. If you're giving something out to your student that's got November, if you're giving something out to your students that's got November dates in it, you're thinking long term with the student. You're not thinking week by week. And the student's parent or the student would appreciate that. They know that you're not just doing something for the short term. You've got long-term goals in mind. So plan for the full year. So it would just be a simple calendar. It's a 1-page summary of what's happening in each month. You might also have your school term dates start and finish for the 4 terms if you're teaching at schools. You have to put in your scheduled outages. So there might be a lesson that you can't do because you might be on tour. You might be, I don't know, there might be something that happens and you know it's happening, even if it's at November, the last week in November or the first week in December at the end of this year. Let them know. Let them know that you can't do it, and then obviously remind them later on. And there's a few ways to remind people about this stuff as well, and I'll talk to you about a platform at the end. Let me write a note here so I don't forget to do that. Okay, so scheduled outages, public holidays. In term 1 in Australia, there are shitloads of public holidays. So if you teach on a Monday or a Friday, you're doing yourself out of money. You're doing the students out of lessons. If somehow you can transfer your lessons to a Tuesday, a Wednesday, or a Thursday, ongoingly, so whatever students you've got on a Monday, if you can move them all to a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday for the rest of the year, that's going to give you a better income. That's going to give you a better attrition rate as well. Now, I know that when there's breaks in the schedule, people may not come back. At the end of school term, people might make a decision to stay. And then after 2 weeks break or 7 weeks break over the Christmas period between term 4 and term 1, there's 7 weeks. So much happens in that time. The student might have forgotten how much fun the lessons are. They might have forgotten that they're on a goal they might have forgotten their goals as a musician. And I can tell you that most students stop continuing between term 4 and term 1. Also, lots of students start. So, you're replacing the ones that leave with the ones that want to start. What if you can keep the ones from leaving and you add to your business? On average, for example, let's just say you teach 50 students a week, 5 don't return, but 7 start. 7 you guys start because you've got good promotion and you've really geared up towards getting a few extra students. You've done all that work to get new students. You've got 5 or 7 new students, but really you've only got 2 additional students because 5 have left. I'm sure you don't have to get a calculator out to work out that's money not well spent if you spent so much money. These 5, you wanted to keep these 5 in the first place. You don't want to let them leave. So keep engaged with them. Workshops during the school holiday periods, over the Christmas period, even just sending them letters, like physical letters or emails or texts, or just to let them know that things are happening. This year is going to be a great year. 2016 for me and my students is going to be amazing. We're launching a whole heap of stuff, and I've been talking about this one-on-one in all the lessons leading up to the end of term 4. So they're excited like I am. And I've given them sneak peeks on stuff that we're going to be launching. It's really important that you let them know about things that are happening. Must-see events. So in that platform, in that sheet, in that PDF or whatever you email them, or in that letter you give them on the first day of their lesson, which has your welcome to 2016, some good information, and then your year. Must-see events. Learn about what clinics are happening. Even just putting ones that might happen that you've just heard about. The Fringe is happening in March here in Adelaide. So there's so many performances in that. And maybe find the Fringe guide, look at a couple and recommend a few. Give people the excitement that you've got to go out and see them. If you're not excited about going to see these things, they won't be. And I'll talk about that in my last topic. Find things that are happening. Gigs, who's touring, what music do they like, who's their favourite musician. If you know that they're touring at the end of the year, tell them about it now. One of my drum students, he's a big fan of a drummer called Edify Richmond, who's a big he's a big, that's Edify Richmond. This is a signed drum head, and I've also got signed drum heads from other superstar musicians like Dave Weckl, Thomas Lang, and they're actually sitting here. They're not up in my studio because that is the reason that I play. So one of my drum students has also got a lot of interest in Edify Richmond as a drummer. Edify played in a band, or still does, in his band called Dig, which is a real funky, groovy kind of outfit. He also plays drums for a few other people, like Guy Sebastian, Dr. Goodrum, the Whitlams, all these extra other artists, because he's such a great muso, and he's just on the road constantly with different bands. When I found out that Edify Richmond was playing in the Whitlams, I've been to see the Whitlams far more than I would have if I didn't know that Edify was in the band, because he is a draw card for me. I go and see the band because of him. So one of my other students, he's a big fan of Edify. I will let that student know, Ellis, if you're watching, on the 9th of the 9th this year, which coincidentally is my birthday, the Whitlams are playing at the Gov. You need to go and check it out. you'll see Therapy play that gig like you've never seen him play before. You've seen him do other shows, but seeing him in that context, you know, you'll need, Ellis, if you're watching, you need to check it out, and you'll get that date in your list that I'm talking about. You'll get a list of all these things that are happening. So must-see events, and clinics, workshops, live broadcasts. You know, schedule some webinars. If you don't know what a webinar is, this is like a webinar. For $0 or for $1 or for $5. Do a couple of hours worth of learning from your home studio. The internet is our friend, and we can have a wider reach. I said earlier in this video, my videos go across my downloadable learning platform. Goes to 40. It's been seen by musicians and learning drummers in 48 different countries across the planet. So the internet is important. The internet is part of what we do. In topic 3 in a second, I'll talk about why it's so important to engage, not just on a phone conversation like we're doing right now, but in a personal one-on-one. You need to engage more, but I'll get to that in a second. That's coming up. One of the other things you need to include in your plan for the year document is if you know that you can't be there, that's okay, and I mentioned that just before. Things happen, life happens. What if you can't be there and you haven't got enough notice to let them know? Obviously they've done the same to you. It's not fair, it sucks, you feel horrible when they just don't rock up. Particularly if it's a public holiday that you teach on and they didn't know that you were still teaching, and you've sacrificed your public holiday Monday or the Friday where you could have done something nice with your family or done nothing. But you've assumed that they've known that you're going to be there. So you've gone to your studio, you might be paying rent to be at this particular studio for this particular day, and 1 out of 10 students has rocked up. Communication is the fix to that problem. It's easy. Just let them know, ask questions, don't assume. The other thing that sticks in my mind is if they've paid for the full term and you know that you're not going to be there, you don't charge them for that particular day. It's not fair that you know that you're not going to be there, so don't charge them for that day. Deduct that, and then so that might be the last week in November that you can't be there for that particular lesson day. So in term 4 of Australian calendar weeks, school terms, there's 9 weeks in that term. You obviously can't teach one of them, so you invoice them for 8. And obviously the reminder lets them know that you won't be there on that day, which is cool. Or do you still invoice them for that day that you're not going to be there, and their lesson becomes part of a lesson credit system? If you don't have a lesson credit system set up somehow, whether it be a horrible piece of paper with a few ticks and boxes and names and columns and whatever, that's a bad way of doing it, but it's a way nonetheless. If you've got no way of recording who you owe lessons to, come on, let's get more professional. Let's find ways to make that easier for you, and there are ways, and I'll talk about those in a minute. So when you can't make that lesson, do you get someone in? I've got a stunt double, I call him. Simon is, for me, he's my most valuable player. He plays every instrument extremely well. He's extremely connectable with any of my students. He's not there to steal my students. He's there to help me, which is very important. It's a double-edged sword though, because the students might like him more than they do me. And in the past they have. They're like, oh, Simon's great. Does he teach on any other days? Sure he does. If you're going to get more from him than you do from me, go and learn from him. I just want you to be involved in music. That sacrifices my money, of course, but it builds a music industry, and Simon loves me and he'll happily go in and help me out any other time. He plays drums, guitar, he's got an ARIA nomination, he's such a beautiful man, and so he is my backup, he's my stunt double. If there's a lesson I cannot do, he will go in and do it, no doubt, and he gets the money for that, and it's on the top of, I get nothing because I'm not there. It's just how it is. Unless I've let them know that I can't make it and I don't invoice them, that would be the easier way, of course. So that's topic 1. Topic 2 covered. Topic 3 is engage with your students more than ever before. Engage with your students more than ever before. So if you've got students that you're happy to be with and they're happy to be with you and you get on really well, step it up. Engage with them more. Be their mate, because you're not just teaching them drums, guitar, bass. You're not just teaching them rudiments and and chords, and you're not just doing that. You are doing that as well. It's very important that you know that you are doing that. But don't just do that. You are teaching them subconscious things that you don't even know about. And I'll talk about that in the not to do section at the end of this Periscope. The reason we need to engage with them more is because the internet, as I just mentioned, that there's so much more for them to access these days. If they access they get the internet, they can find ways for them to learn how to play a particular chord, play a particular song. But the YouTube, I'm trying to be engaging. The messages that are coming through, and yes, I saw your message a second ago, and I'll answer that in a second. I'm trying to be engaging with this as much as I possibly can. It's an open platform. You can ask questions, and I can respond to your questions. YouTube doesn't have that, or it does have a live thing now, but it doesn't have that same appeal. It's someone showing something. They're kind of talking to a brick wall. They don't know how you learn. So you need to engage with them more. You need to ask them lots of questions about why is music important to them. And let them talk, let them tell you. Whether they're 5 years old or 55 years old, they'll have different ideas of why music's important to them. And teach to that reason. There is 4 major learning styles. And if you haven't studied those, do yourself a favor, be a professional musician, be a professional educator, and learn the best way to teach. Not because they're not going to learn just because you're teaching them. You need to figure out how they learn. That'll get them engaged, and you'll see far more progress. The question that just popped up before was, do I teach at home or in schools? Yes, I teach in both, and I don't know what you mean by teach, because I teach music, I teach drums, I teach in public schools, but not only do I teach music education. I teach educators how to educate. So I mentor a few, when I say a few, there's about 17 teachers that work closely with me from across Australia, and I help them with products and programs and how they can deliver and make more money from their music practice. So being a musician is fun. I get to teach people how to become musicians, but I also love being a teacher. So if I can teach people how to teach better, then that is important for me as well. So hopefully I've answered your question there. You really need to learn. This is what this is about. This is not me teaching you how to play drums. This is not me teaching someone how to play bass guitars, write songs, whatever. This is me teaching you, helping you learn how to be a better teacher. Because you can make some good money and you can change the world from teaching music. And you might think that's a pretty big statement, but you're probably a musician. If you're watching this, well done, because you're on and you're learning. You've taken the time out of your day to check this out. So pat on the back for you. But you want to be a better teacher. You want to have more students. You want to engage with them more. Maybe you're really interested in setting up a teaching practice that sort of outweighs, or that completely outweigh all your other competition teachers. So you might have 2 guitar teachers in the same music school, and they both teach at the same night, in the same venue, they have the same time slot available. How does a student determine who they go to? Is it something that you've promoted and you've kept them excited, or you've got them excited? You've got to meet them in the hall, or you've got a better looking room, or you've got some status you can check out. They can check you out online. Is there somewhere I can go? If you're a music teacher right now, I'm interested to know, out of the viewers that I have, even the replays on Periscope, if you are a music teacher, is there a link, one single link that you can send me that will direct me to your teaching business so I can get excited and enroll with you? Do you have that? If you don't, make it happen. Get it happen. Whether it's just a Facebook page, get a website, and we'll talk about that in a second, but do you have something that you can send me right now that will get me to your website? I'm a young kid and I want to learn drums or your instrument. Learn to learn. Not just to learn from someone like myself or other music educators that do great jobs in in teaching, and there's so many teachers that teach how to teach. It's very important to know who's done it, who's doing it, who's creating the waves, who's disrupting the system. You know, the platform that I'm building with some partners, and we've got some investors in this. This thing is worth a lot of money. It's a big platform. When I say it's worth a lot of money, it's part of a multi-billion-dollar industry. So we are putting our necks on the line. We are disrupting the industry, and we're separating the hobbyist teacher that's doing it for a bit of fun, a couple of lessons a week for money, horrible business transactions, causing grief, not being professional. We're putting a big black line between those guys and the guys who are professional and serious. Yeah, I'm a teacher for you. I just sort of missed your name there. Yes, I am a teacher. I'm a teacher of teachers, and I'm a teacher of music. I teach drums in public schools, a couple of out of hours, community centres, as well as overseas and international, interstate and international schools. And my stuff's downloadable. We've worked, myself and my company have worked in over 40 countries across the planet. So yep, I teach. And yep, it's nice. I just sort of throw that quick credential stuff in there. PeteBarter.com. There's a link that says Learn Drums with Pete. Click on that. There's a bit of a video. I've taken it in here. I do want to do a new one because I wasn't happy with the way I conveyed the information, but it's there. And on the back of having that, some inquiries that have happened in the last few weeks, I've just able to send them that. And they've watched the video, they've hit enroll, they're enrolled now. It's a really simple process. So have that connection. Make it easy for people to know you. Make it easy for people to figure out who you are and what your morals are. And then they'll join you. Or they won't. You know, if your morals are bad, you're showing that in your videos, or you're showing that, or you're talking about that. If they agree with your bad morals, then they'll join you. If they don't agree with your bad morals, they won't join you. They won't join you. Maybe don't have bad morals. You know, I'll talk about that in a second. So the four major learning styles that I've touched on just before, I'm going to keep it really simple. I don't have a thing in here with me at the moment, but we've got a program coming out as part of the 21 Blueprints. If you go to my website, you'll see that. Chuck your name on the list, you might get some early bonuses. We talk about that in detail. It's a 21 video program. The videos go between 20 minutes to an hour, maybe longer, depending on the amount of content. It's only $21 as well. And within that, there's one particular set of videos which talks about the whole brain learning pattern, the learning styles, which will help you understand what learning pattern your student has. So when they walk into the room for the very first time, you can see that they're a particular style, and you can teach to that style. Not teach them how you will learn, because how you will learn was and probably is completely different to how they learn. So if you can figure out their personality, their learning personality, then that can't be a bad thing, right? You're gonna keep them longer. You're gonna engage with them more. They're gonna be more excited because you're talking their language. And it's all about language. Music is a language. I think music education is one of the best things, because we've had to learn the language extremely well, and then we learn the language of explaining it. Because the way we figured it out from our teachers they might have said something that didn't quite make sense, and we've manipulated the information in our minds to make it more appealing and to give it sense. So then we display that, and we convey that to our students. If we can't convey that information well, the students may either manipulate it in their minds and figure it out, or they won't, and they won't get it, and they won't understand it. I've got a student that I teach at public schools, and we were talking about months of the year for particular reasons, and it couldn't get the months of the year in order. The kid's an 11-year-old kid, and he didn't know the months of the year. So now every time he walks in the lesson, I make sure he can recite the months of the year to me. It's not my job to do that, of course, but I'm happy to help the kid out, because what if he's got a gig in September and it's currently March? How many weeks or how many months does he have to prepare? He didn't understand that. He didn't think that it was important enough to understand that. because he's an excitable kid and didn't care about the detail. He loved, so he's what we call, he'd be creative. He'd come from the red quadrant. So the red part of the brain is creative. Most of us musicians are very creative, which means that we're not too good at business, because business is process. We can be creative in marketing, yes, that is business, but the fundamental bottom line of business is process. Process of invoicing, process of scheduling, process of money handling. And go back to the start of the video if you've joined me now, watch it again in replay and you'll see what I mean by that. And I'm being very general. Not many people have extremes of each quadrant. Most people are made up of bits of each. What you want to end up being, and you can train your brain to do this, and the ultimate personality type is what they call well-rounded or whole-brained. Whole-brained means that you've got an equal amount of skill in each of those 4 quadrants. That's whole-brained. And that helps you. And I've been studying this stuff for a long time, and I'm learning different ways. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm whole-brained, but I know how to completely engage with someone who is a different spectrum, a different part of the quadrant than I am. And it helps me keep them students. It helps me keep them engaged. It helps them continue on a forward process where they're going to continually improve. One of the things that I like to do at the beginning of the year as well with new students, and even old ones, and go over it again, is get a whiteboard or a piece of paper and draw on the y-axis. We'll do level of awesomeness. You know, it's a bit of fun. Sometimes we're dealing with young kids and they understand that. Level of awesomeness, or level of control, or level of, depending on the personality style, you can reword this, but let's just say the y-axis, up and down, is level of awesomeness, and the x-axis is months of the year, or weeks of the term. Let's do term by term for this example. We start at 0 and we go to 11 weeks in term 1, if you don't know. In Adelaide there is anyway. So this bit here, the y-axis, is going to be a continual process. It's not going to stop for anyone. There's always going to be a next week. There's always going to be a last week. It's a time motion. It's not going to stop. Level of awesomeness is the bit that they get to change. They get to create this number. They get to build the number on the y-axis. So what I do is I go, all right, so if we were to practice for, sorry, I don't like using the word practice. If we were to spend 20 minutes a day on this particular topic in 5 days, I'd give yourself a 10 out of 10 for that, because that's a good point. But if you don't spend enough time on that particular topic, you're not going to go up and down the y-axis. You're going to stay low. This is going to be flat, so you're going to have like a flat line. You want to be continually growing. You want the scale to go up from the y. The level of awesomeness is basically related to how many minutes or how many hours they spend doing something. Because the more often you do something, the quicker you get better at it. I pulled myself back a second ago from saying the practice word, the P word. If you're teaching at schools or even young adults that are very academic, or this works across all platforms, all quadrants of the brain. The word practice and the word homework are not nice words to use. Children and kids pull back from those words because they go, oh, it's practice, no, it's homework. So they might get a drum thing out where they have to practice a certain rudiment for a certain amount of minutes. That might be their goal. So they're looking at the clock. All right, I've got to do this for 10 minutes, or 5 seconds, or 2 minutes, or whatever. They're just doing it for the duration of the time. They don't actually give a shit about how well their hands are handling the drumstick. They don't care that they're doing it to improve. They're doing it to get to the end of the time. It's a time goal, not a development goal. Write that down. We want to give kids development goals, not time goals. So we want to get them to a level that feels better and is easier for them without putting a time frame to it. What I mean by that is, if you don't say, look, don't just practice for 5 minutes for the sake of practicing. Do 2 minutes, providing you meet this milestone at the end of that practice. You know what I mean? So the word practice and the word homework, I've seen it. I've had parents tell me, and like I use the parents as flies on the wall. I'll chat with them quietly. I'll send them emails, and I'll say, look, I really want to know what happens on the drum kit when I'm not around. You're home. Tell me, even just record the audio. Just let me know what they do. And he goes, oh yeah, little Johnny was great. He got his practice pad out and he put a clock next to it, and he watched the clock the whole time to make sure he got all the way up to 2 minutes. And this particular lesson, she recorded the audio. So I'm listening to I didn't really hear any improvement in 2 minutes, but I also heard the TV on in the background. Whether they were there or not watching, I don't know. But I'm assuming that the TV was in front, the clock was on, and they were just noodling between commercials, or, you know, it's better than not doing anything at all. But if we can find out that those little things make the biggest differences to our students' development, don't use the word practice, don't use the word homework. What I use is, how about we go home and get better at that? Get better at, you need to go home and work on that little thing. That little thing is going to help you become a better drummer, bass player, guitarist, musician, etc. That's what you want, right? It's sales. These kids don't know it. You're helping them be the best that they can be. You're helping them be as good as you, or if not better. That's my goal. If I can get my students to be as good as me, if not better, as soon as they can, not when they're my age, then I'm a happy man, because my job as a teacher has worked. They've become better musicians and better informed musicians. So they've learned how to learn. The subconscious stuff is now what I want to talk about. And this is actually what not to do. So this is the last part. So let me just recap for a second. If you've just joined us, go back and watch it from the start. There's a lot of good information here. 3 things to prepare for this year. Don't touch the money, which was topic number 1. Automate that. Plan for the full year. Show that your students are part of your thought process and part of your plan for the next year, because that'll help them. You don't go to Adelaide, or you don't go to university, or you don't go to TAFE to learn music for a week. There's short courses, yes, there is. But when you get into a platform like a university or a college, it's not for a couple of weeks. It's not for 1 term. Generally, it's for years. So if you can spell out a year's worth of information to them, they know they're there for a while, and they can prepare for the year, which stops them leaving in between terms. I can guarantee that. You know, so plan for the year. There's a heap of stuff there. Check it out and rewind and watch. Number 3 was engage with your students more, and there's a whole heap of things that you can do to make that happen. Just engage with them, and there's so many things that you can do to be more engaging. Stand up when they walk in. Open the door for them. You know, don't just sit in that one chair. I've seen it. I've seen guitar teachers that have actually got deep vein thrombosis or blood clots from teaching so long. And the reason they got it is because they sit in a room for 4 hours or 6 hours straight. They just get in the chair, everything's around them, they get comfy, and they just sit and they just wait. Like, get up, move around, go outside, get some fresh air. Tell the students that I'm just going to go outside for some fresh air, and don't have a smoke when you do this, by the way. Don't smoke. Why would you bother doing that? Go get some fresh air, because you don't want to be sitting in a stagnant air room yawning. That's disencouraging. Just get some air into your lungs. It's, you know, we can talk for hours on that sort of stuff. What not to do for the year and beyond. What not to do. 90% of what your students learn is not what you actually teach them on purpose. 90% of what your students learn is not what you teach them on purpose. If you are rocking up late, that shows you're irresponsible. If you go out at the end of every lesson with that student, because you get up and you walk out with them, you know, that, like I said just before, that's a good thing. But if you go outside for a smoke, the student is seeing you do that, and there's a really good chance that your student is going to start smoking. You're their mentor. You're the person they look up to. Stop smoking. It's, you know, I've never smoked, so I know it's not easy, right? Well, I've heard that it's not easy to quit, but I'm sure there's ways. Figure it out. You know, it's your professional, and not just because it's the money. The child might not smoke, the child might live in a smoke-free house, and you're breathing disgusting, stinky fucking smoke breath. It's horrible. Don't be that person. And then so that you leave and you have a smoke, and the next student rocks up, they see you smoking. So and I know, I've seen it done. There's teachers that smoke in between every lesson. They go outside and they have half a smoke every half hour, all night. It's disgusting, and the parents don't really pick up on it because they might just see it once, and they might just see it at that same time every week. That might be the smoke break session, right? So little Johnny's lesson's finished. He goes, the teacher or she goes out and has a smoke at that point. Don't do that near them. Don't encourage them to do that. You're encouraging them, even though you're not going, here, have a smoke. You're still encouraging them to do this. You just don't know it. The clothes you wear. Don't be sexist. Don't be racist. You know, we're building the future leaders of tomorrow. If you don't like living in a world that has so much hate and so much, sexism and horrible things going on, if you don't like living in that world, don't promote it, because the sooner we can all chill out on the sexism and the racism, the sooner things are going to be a lot better for us, right? If you are a racist person, keep the opinions to yourself. If you say it, if you think it, you'll say it, right? If you say it, you're acting it. But slowly wind back on that. Stop acting it. Stop wearing clothes that have sexist things on them. Don't have Jim Beam or West End Draft t-shirts and the hats that encourage beer, or there's so much of this stuff that just happens subconsciously that we don't even think about it, right? We rock up to a gig and we want just chuck on a shirt. Now you're better off chucking on a Reebok or a Nike shirt rather than a Jim Beam or a Jack Daniels t-shirt, because and then it just encourages all sorts of stuff. Someone approached me the other week and wanted me to help them with putting on a suicide prevention fundraiser. They wanted to know if they could use my venue. ETI doesn't have a venue. We lease other venues from other organisations. And he said, there's a couple of places down the road I might use. I'm like, cool, who have you got? He goes, there's this pub and this pub and this pub. I said, so how much you know about suicide and how much you know about depression? Most people commit suicide because they're depressed. All right? They've got thoughts and they can't get rid of those thoughts. And the only way to get rid of those thoughts is to commit suicide. It's horrible. Most depression comes from substance abuse. It's not all of it, some of it, or it's fueled by alcohol or drugs or whatever. So he wanted to have a suicide prevention program in a pub. I'm like, fuck, man, are you thinking straight? You're not actually helping. So drugs, alcohol are a big problem. Everything in moderation. I don't do drugs. I drink very, 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 very occasionally. This is water works quite well. And where we're living here in this new place, for some reason the water out of the tap tastes amazing. We've only moved 6 minutes from where we were in the last house, and the water tastes different. It's amazing. Maybe it's different pipes, maybe it's older pipes, I don't know, but it's crystal clear. It's actually clearer than pure tap, and it tastes great, and it's free. Well, Your subconscious stuff. Drink water at your lessons. Don't drink Coke. Don't drink Powerade. Powerade's got more sugar in it, and almost as much sugar as Coke in it. It's okay. It's got electrolytes. It's okay if you're sweating, if you're a marathon runner. But I doubt sitting in a room teaching one-on-one makes you sweat so much that you have to have Powerade. And obesity is another thing that's happening as well. So if you're having some food during lessons or after lessons or in between lessons, which has to happen because we got to eat, right? Have an apple. Have something good. Don't just say, I'm just popping out to Macca's, I'll be back in a minute. That's not good either. Kids understand Macca's and they know it's the most common food on the planet. It's the fast food actually it's going out of date. Things are changing. Macca's are losing profit. Things are changing. But don't, hey, how you doing? Whoever you are, can't quite see your name. But don't feed the minds of these young, beautiful children with things that are big parts of problems that we've got here in not just Adelaide, not just Australia, but the world. We can change this. us, you and I, right? We're music educators. People come to us to learn how to play something. But we're so much more than that. We are their mentors. We are someone that they look up to. I look up to my teacher, and any professional, successful musician, the ones that I've interviewed, I've always asked, so who has been your teacher? Who is your mentor? They always remember who their teachers are. People will remember you, right? You're the teacher. I've been teaching I'm 35 right now. I gave my first lesson when I was 15 years old. I remember it perfectly. It was a friend from school. I'd already been playing drums for a number of years. I was in the school band, and I borrowed the music room at lunch because I gave a lesson. It was a free lesson nonetheless. I just wanted to impart wisdom. And he walked away with a smile. He was a younger kid. He walked away with a smile, and he always jumped on the drum kit. Far more after that, I taught him some simple stuff to help him play better. And Daniel now is still playing drums 20 years later. All right. So when I was 15, I gave my first lesson, and I've not had a break ever since. I have breaks during the school terms like school teachers do, but during those 2-week breaks or 7 weeks over Christmas, I always put on other workshops. I always put on drum clinics, and ETI Music has hosted some of the world's best here in Adelaide. Justin Timberlake's band did a workshop for us. Pink's band did a workshop for us. I'm featured on the front of a magazine. I'm looking at it now with Mick Fleetwood on the front. I've got a diploma of all sorts of things not related to music, because music's a creative outlet. You learn the skills. If you go to a Conservatory of Music and you learn the skills, that's a process of learning the skills. It helps you put your creativeness into perspective. I've not done any of that. I've never done that. I'm from the school of let's learn from everybody and take it on, mold it my own way, put it out into the world, and study what I'm putting out. Look at the results I'm getting. After 20 years, I know that I'm doing quite well, and I get invited to speak at schools. I get invited to speak at music schools. I get invited to teach. I do a lot of online stuff. I mentor people from all over Australia. I've been overseas teaching Singapore, which has an amazing music economy as well. Being there, it's fun, and I'm only 35, and I'm only just getting started, and I'm learning so much. Just connecting myself with other superstar musicians and finding out how they tick. I've just started a negotiation with one of the organisations here in Adelaide that take care of the Fringe Festival, in particular the Garden of Unearthly Delights, which is part of the Fringe, which is an amazing festival that goes for a month or so. I love the fact that the Fringe is made up of thousands of little shows. Some are once off, some continue throughout the duration, 2 or 3 shows a day or more. And those shows happen because someone with passion has gone, I don't want to work a job, I want to make money from what I love, and I want to share it. So I get the amazing opportunity of interviewing as many of these people as I can to ask them questions about what makes them tick as a professional musician. Would they rather put all their effort into running a show during the Fringe, knowing that it might not be a success, it might flop, or it might be a success and it might not flop? You don't know until you do it. But if they put everything they've got into it, it's going to be a success. Promotions, who they are as a person, how they conduct themselves. The interview that I do with them is going to show that a lot. So I suggest that you subscribe to ETI Music. Check out Education Through Inspiration on Facebook, because that's where I'm going to be posting a lot of the stuff. Just keep involved, because I'm going to have some of the world's best entertainers, musicians, performers, dancers are going to be sharing their wisdom on how they got to the point that they're at, and whether they teach, who they learned from. And I guarantee you, they'll all tell you who their teachers were. My drum teacher, when I first started having lessons, his name is Billy Warnock. I met him at a blue light disco. My neighbour was a treasurer, so we got to hang with the star of, we'll hang with them after the show. We went to Pizza Hut and we had pizza in Elizabeth, and Scott Michelson, which was Brad from Neighbours at the time, he was their celebrity. So the treasurer would pay some money, someone would come in and be the guy at the blue light disco once a month. And my sister was all like, oh my God, And I'm with the band going, man, I'm some zit-faced 9-year-old kid, you know, walking up to this guy, oh my God, you're an amazing drummer. And without a word of a lie, he went, you can be an amazing drummer too if you're just prepared to learn, and handed me his business card. I went straight home to my dad. My dad gave him a call, sussed him out, booked in the lessons for about 4 years straight. Started half-hour lessons and then went to hour lessons. I worked with Billy, and it was amazing. It was just in his home studio. Then we started working from a store. I followed him in his bands, and I still, you know, catch up with him to this very day. He was the best man at my wedding. So, and he's amazing, and he's just a beautiful person, and I connected extremely well with Billy. And I that's what I'm saying is, you are going to be that person. You are going to be the Billy to your students, because they want to. If you teach just for the sake of teaching, and you know, don't engage, don't expect them to remember your name. But wouldn't it be great to be recognised when your students are doing amazing things on amazing stages in amazing countries, and someone asks them one day, "Wow, who are your teachers, or who is your teacher?" Imagine your name being mentioned. Imagine that. Imagine being voted. I'd love to be able to set up the Australian Teachers Recognition Board, where you might get voted as the best teacher in Australia, the best one-on-one music teacher, voted by your students. Yeah, I'd love to make that happen. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I've just started something I shouldn't have. Watch your language. Obviously, try not to swear. Don't swear. You might swear under passion. Don't swear all the time. You know, I use swear words as sentence enhancers sometimes to get their attention. Edify others. Oh, sorry, let's go back to watch your language. Right, so the language you use. Positive affirmations. Tell them they're doing great. I always go in with a meat sandwich. If they're doing something bad, you might want to give them a good point first. Give them we need to work on this because it's not quite sitting right. I'll show you why. Give them the stats, give them the data, show them why it's not quite working, and show them why it's best that they do it differently so it works for them. Give them the reason to make it better, whether it's, you know, the embouchure or, you know, stick weight, whatever. Just help them. That you're there to help. That's your job. Edify others. Now that means that if there's a drummer teaching next door and they're teaching badly, they're teaching loud, they stink, they smell, they're everyone that you are not. They're the sort of person that we've trying to brush out from being involved in creating a music teaching industry based on bogans, all right? You can think these thoughts to yourself. But don't say it to your student. Don't say, oh, that guy's a dickhead. Look, he stinks and he smells and you're glad you're with me. They'll just know they're in the right room, all right, because they're with you. But don't talk down about someone. Talk up about people that are better than you. Like, yeah, I love, like, my drum teacher, Billy, right? Always dressed well. Always spoke well. And that was the start of my music career. Since then, Dom Famularo, Dave Weckl, Jojo Mayer, Pete Drummond, Darren Ferrugia, Terapi Richmond, looking at my board over here, other musicians like Dre Energy, right? He's a drummer from Cirque LA, amazing, beautiful man. Ben Todd, Joel Prime. These are all guys that I can just rattle off the top of my head because they're not just great musicians, they're amazing. Holly Thomas, a chick drummer here in Adelaide. She's amazing, a beautiful person, beautiful drummer. It's, you know, there's so many. They're all great people. And every time these guys play, I encourage my students to go and check them out because they're doing the do. They do what needs to be done to make the music sound good. That's our job. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up right now because I've got to get ready and head off. So we've talked quite a bit about the subconscious learning in this particular section at the end, what not to do, right? Smokers, don't smoke. Try and find a way to not smoke. Fresh mints, man, just pile them in your mouth. If you don't have to, if you can't talk because you've got so much, you know, chewing gum for Fill your freaking mouth with chewing gum because people don't want to smell your smelly breath. Smoke is, it's not a good thing. Not a good look. It's not cool. Don't tell your students about your weekend you had and you got pissed and it was amazing. You vomited everywhere. That's not what they want to hear. Well, they don't know that they don't want to hear this. Let's be honest. They don't know about that stuff. They'll figure it out for themselves, man. But don't encourage it. You're only one piece of the puzzle compared to their parents, their home life, their school life. But you're an amazing piece. You're the big piece, man. You are the. Look, I don't know if you can understand how frustrated I get. I'm extremely passionate about being the right person for my students to come to. I don't ever want to be that wrong person. My attitude is always different when I walk into a room. I might have had a bad day. I might have got a speeding ticket. I might have whatever on the way. As soon as I get in that room, I'm different. I'm the person that I want to be when I'm in that room. I love teaching. It's the best part of my week, best part of my day. I would rather sit in a room countless hours and work with students one-on-one or in a group. That would make me no more happier than anything else on the planet. I seriously mean that. So if you're a student watching this, you're a big part of my day. You're a big part of my life, and I love the association that we have because you get to play some music and have some fun and tour the world. If you tour the world with these things in your back pocket, chopsticks, you'll make a lot of mess while you're eating. If you choose music, which you have, if you're an educator and you're watching this, you've chosen music because you're teaching it, right? But you want to get your students to choose music for life. It's fun, it's awesome. It can be stressful, but it's exciting stress. It's nerves. There's a whole heap of stuff that comes along with being a musician. So having the opportunity to share the good things, There's always going to be times to share the bad things. That'll happen. I want to end with selling you some information, which won't cost you anything. We're building a platform. Myself and a team of amazing ambassadors are building a platform, work in progress at the moment, but etiaccess.com is where you can go to see a bit of a preview on it. That was a version that we put out. It's currently being used as a prototype. Since then, it's been completely revamped and recreated, and we've got on board some people like, I'm not going to name their names, but they've worked with Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, have built and sold many extremely successful businesses. They know what they're doing. So this platform is going to create an opportunity for music educators to put all these things that I've mentioned, particularly the first three, how not to touch the money, how to plan your year and scheduling and engage your students, video learning, and a whole heap of what not to do as well, in a platform that takes care of everything. It's working for me right now. It gives me the time that I need to either teach more because if you teach for a half hour, you've probably got 5 minutes or 10 minutes for every single lesson outside of that lesson that you have to spend on admin. Would you rather not spend it? We don't get in business to teach because we love doing paperwork. Otherwise, we'd be an accountant, right? So we need to make sure that when we're teaching, we love teaching. Don't let the bad things of business get in the way of teaching, because when you start doing if you're running a business and you're sending invoices and people aren't paying you and you still have expenses, eventually your expenses are going to need to be paid. And if you're not getting money in, you need to pay for the rent of your room, and then things go bad and you got a credit card, and then it can get bad. We're going to help you manage your business. We've started and sold many successful businesses, and I've done that personally. I've bought my first business when I was 17 years old. So we're creating a platform for you guys to use and understand a lot of cool things about how music works, how music teaching works, how the creative industry works. This platform is going to help you schedule. It's going to help you communicate with everyone effectively and legally, because there's some changes coming in. If you're communicating with younger students, this is going to save your ass. It'll show you how to get the clearances that you need, so it'll direct you to the right platform so you can apply for the clearances. It's not like, we're going to give you clearances. No, you've got to be able to be cleared. So you've got to go through the government departments to get those clearances so you can work in schools. It's not that easy. You've got to have all these things. You've got to do some extra training. It's important though, because you are dealing with kids' lives. The education system is shit. The people in the education system go in trying to change it to make it better, and they get shut down. Us music educators, we're different, all right? We're trying to change the way the business runs, trying to change the world runs. So if a platform can help you do that, it wouldn't be a bad thing, right? And it's not even going to be expensive. It's probably not even going to cost you anything. It's probably going to cost you maybe $1 a lesson, and you don't even have to pay us. The students can pay us for you. You just pass on or whatever. You know, there's a whole heap of things. So it's a value for money platform that's going to help you create more business and more money so you can do more things, either teach more or have more life. And this is something we're working on, something I'm extremely passionate about. I've worked on this platform from its inception about 6-7 years ago. We've had 3 or 4 prototypes run, and we're much closer now to releasing it. And we're aiming to release it in the middle of the year. And it's going to be huge, right? It's going to be a massive, massive thing. It's revolutionizing. There's a few platforms out there that people are using, and I've seen them, and I trialed them, and I use them. I picked them to bits, and some of them claim to do everything, but they've missed the mark by miles. They're clearly a glorified Google Calendar with a whole heap of complications, which ends up showing on your Google Calendar anyway. So why don't you just use Google Calendar? And it's free, right? There's about 6 or 7 platforms that I could name for you, and if you want to know them all, let me know and I'll tell you. There's about 6 platforms that you can use that will help you run your business somewhat. And they do a little bit. You might need a bit of that one, you might need a bit of that platform, might need a bit of that platform. Ours is going to have everything you ever needed and more. It's going to help you so much that you have no idea. It's all the people that I've put into my organization have not started, they haven't come to me as music teachers. They've been good musicians and good people, and I've asked them if they'd like to start teaching for me because I think they've got something good to sell, a good message to pass on. They have no idea how to run a business. They're just good musicians. So I help them with that, and I give them the platform, and they do it. They run their own businesses now, and they do extremely well. That's all they do. None of my teachers that worked with us had other jobs. Lived wholly and solely off the teaching business. If you do it right, you do it well, you can do that. I've got some music teachers that are involved with our organisation that do earn 80 grand a year. And they have the school holidays, 2 weeks off, and they have 7 weeks over Christmas with the money still there. All right, it's doable. And some of those guys are investing into businesses and they're buying houses and they're sharing. And I've put a couple of those music teachers together in other businesses. So they invest, and that money comes back, and they make more money. And who would have thought? We can start with being a drummer and end up owning houses as an investor. Shit happens. It gets real, man. You can do this stuff. And we help you do that. We'll align you to the platforms that enable you to do that. All right. So my name is Pete Barter. It's been awesome chatting with you. This video is going to be available on YouTube because I always like to keep them and share them. So Perescope deletes them after 24 hours or 12 hours, whatever it is. But it'll be on YouTube. Check it out. Give me your comments, like and subscribe. We need to build the culture. We represent a multi-billion-dollar industry, multi-trillion-dollar industry globally. Let's be the 1%er that changes the face of music education, which then changes the face of music. Put your hand up if you've got a record or a CD that's out that you made money from when CDs were buyable, when you sold them physically. Put your hand up if you've got royalties coming from those CDs. Put your hand up if you don't know what a royalty is. If you don't know what a royalty is, ask your teacher. If you don't have a teacher, get a teacher. Royalties are important. Royalties still happen. Unfortunately, royalties are probably the only way musicians make money these days. But the royalty has been diluted because there's so many, like you've seen all the information about Spotify and how they're not paying their artists very much money. Yeah, but it gives you the musician access to billions of people opposed to 1 million. Opposed to 10 people at a gig. So, you take the good with the bad. So look, subscribe. We'd love to teach. Ask me some questions. I want to start doing Ask Pete B And I want to start just taking one question a day and just answering that. And honestly, and as simply as I possibly can, because I know the question that you've got is probably on the lips of everybody else. So, all right, thank you for watching, and I'll see you a little bit later.